Pace Morby. He is a former owner of a construction company, a thriving construction company, and decided at one point in time to go ahead and shut that company down for the most part and jump into real estate wholesale. And right now what he does is he helps facilitate the growth of a lot of individual new wholesalers, and at the same time as they're growing, he's growing as well. How long did you work in construction?
So we had, I grew up in a construction family, so my dad was a contractor. So when I was going through school and college, it was always the way that I made money, right? So I'm going to college and I would make money on the side painting people's houses at night or painting people's houses on the weekends. And then when I left college, I got into manufacturing. I put some money into that, and then the market crashed. And the only thing that I could get into was construction. The market crashed so bad that I lost at the time, I was like 24. I lost, the only assets I had was about $300,000. I lost everything. So what I did is I got into something else, and I started a little construction company. So I did that. Honestly, the only thing I did was construction for about 8 years. So from the time where I was 25 to the time I was 33, I'm now 36. That's all I did was construction. And it evolved multiple times into different facets of construction. So I started with me and one employee, then I went to me and 10 employees, then I went to me, 10 employees and a foreman. Then I could start disconnecting and going and looking for other opportunities. We were doing a lot of homeowner stuff, but then we went and worked for Open Door for 4 years, and we were doing all their construction. And then I realized, wow, there's a lot of money being made in flipping houses. And that's when I started looking at, how do I spend my time making money instead of working for the people who are making all the money? So about the time I was 33, I started opening my eyes. I wish I did it earlier, but that's about how long I did it only as a contractor. From 33 to 35, I was doing wholesale while I was running a 180 person employee or 180 employee company. I was doing wholesale on the side out of my garage. And then I finally got to a point where I go, I'm done. I'm going to go full-time wholesale.
So why did you completely just shut down your company and go wholesale?
Construction's a horrible business. It's horrible business. Anybody that's in construction, unless you're like a small guy that you're in a niche market or you're a really big company, anything in between is really, really tough. And the reason being is because you're not a contractor, you're a bill collector. You're constantly chasing money all the time. You're the bank, you're the psychologist, you're the consultant. You don't get paid on so many things that you do. Whereas like in wholesale, everything I do to provide value, I get paid for. Everything. But as a contractor, what would happen is you go spend 3-4 hours consulting with somebody on, do this, don't move that wall there, do this, blah, 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 blah. And then they'd hire another contractor to come and do the job because he was $2,000 lower than you. So then you'd have to lower your price to an appropriate point, and you're like, okay, well now I'm operating on really small margins. But then what happened is I wouldn't get paid the last 5% or 10% of the job because they'd say, well, we didn't make as much money on the flip as we thought, so we'll get you caught up on the next one. So last year in 2018, I had my biggest customer file bankruptcy on me, $900,000.
That's insane.
That was the 4th or 5th time it's happened in my life. Not 900 grand, but I've had multiple guys. They accumulate a big amount of money because I'm doing so many projects for them. So I go do 150,000 of work, they pay me 140. I go do 200,000 of work, they pay me 180. And that starts accumulating, and over a course of 2 years, you're like, holy shit, you owe me 200 grand.
Right.
What they do, file bankruptcy on the LLC, or not even file bankruptcy on the LLC. They move to another LLC and they don't pay us. Anna on my team has watched that happen probably to the tune of $2 or $3 million that I've lost just since she worked for me.
Wow.
So in wholesale or real estate investing, you have a title company that ensures that you get paid. In fact, the transaction can't close unless you are getting paid. So what's funny is, like, as a contractor, you would run around town, hey, when can I get money? When can I get money? When can I get money? All the time. Like 50% of my job was collecting money and hounding people and trying to create leverage and calling their wife. And I ended up hiring a full-time employee last year in 2018 just to collect money.
Wow.
So as a wholesaler, I got a check. This is funny. Actually, Jesse Burrell and I did a deal in January. I got a check about a month ago for $3,000. The title company had been sitting on it, and they finally like, Pace isn't going to pick it up. And they mail it to me, and I open the check. I'm like, what's this deal from? I don't even remember this deal. The title company will ensure that you get paid. They will make sure you get paid. It is all documented. There's no way to screw you on the money. So now I just realized, like, I was actually really stupid. One of the guys that I was working for was another wholesaler, was flipping as well. And when I got into wholesale, he goes, "You're going to destroy everybody." And I'm like, "No, I love my company. I've been building this construction company for 8 years. I love my employees." He goes, "No, when you finally realize all of your skill sets and all of your hard work is going to pay you 20x in wholesaling and real estate investing, you're going to abandon your construction company." And I didn't believe him. But after 6 months working 80 hours a week in construction, 20 hours a week in wholesale, I was making as much money in wholesale as I was in construction, but I stupidly kept that going for another year and a half past that point until somebody filed bankruptcy on me. I go, "I'm done." So that the day that happened, I got the notice of bankruptcy in the mail. I made a decision that December 31st, 2018 was the last day I'd be a contractor. So that January 1 of this year was the first day of my life. In 10 years, I hadn't been a contractor.
Nice, man.
Yeah, so now people reach out to me and go, "Hey, I got a project." I go, "Great, take a hike."
I can imagine.
Right.
Who were your mentors in wholesale?
My mentors in wholesale, there was a couple of guys that when I was a contractor, they would call me and they'd say, "Hey, I have an appointment with a seller. Will you come and pose as my contractor?" Because I was a real contractor. And so they didn't know they were being my mentors, and I didn't know they were my mentor at the time, but I looked at how infrequently they worked, and they still made $50,000 a month or so. I knew a guy named Jason, I won't say his last name, but Jason, who makes $1 million a year in wholesale. He's been in the business a long time. And I swear to you, he 1 o'clock in the afternoon looked like he just rolled out of bed. And I'm like, that's not me, that's not you.
Right.
But I'm like, this guy's making $1 million a year and he's leveraging my time when I'm already super busy. So that was a mentorship that I didn't quite understand. It was a mentorship until a little bit later. But it's what pushed me into, how do I become that guy, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a handful of guys. I'd say Steve Trang's been super helpful. Jamil Donji, he's my daughter's godfather. We've been good friends for years. And when I first got into wholesale 3 years ago, he was the first person I sat down with and I said, "I need help. I don't know which way to go." And he goes, "Well, you're the hardest working guy I know. You're going to crush it." And I go, "But point me in the right direction." Mm-hmm. So I'd say Jamil and Steve were big mentors, and still to this day, I run 3 times a week with Steve, and we sit there and it's just like right now, right? Like the last hour before this podcast started, you and I are talking about stuff that gets me excited, gets you excited, and it spurs on stronger and better conversations. And then you go find something out, and the next time I see you, we're having lunch, you're going to tell me something I didn't know. Like, those are the relationships I'm seeking out. So even though I do as many deals in town as just about everybody, the guys in town that I'm still hanging out with are still mentoring me because they go get a piece of information and bring it back. So I'd say there's 15 guys in town that I'll go spend time with, like Evo. The other day we made a decision, hey, this part of our marketing mechanism is not working very well. But I was in Evo's office explaining seller finance to him and like what we're doing with it. And he goes, hey, what in your business can I help you with? And I go, well, we're going to shut this part of our business down because it's not working well. And he goes, well, we're doing the same thing, but we're making $60,000 a month utilizing that. You're doing something wrong. Let me show you. So I think just the guys that I'm currently rubbing shoulders with are big mentors, but nobody I'm paying, nobody that I've been following like single, have been really my mentors, just the ongoing relationships that I have.
Yeah, and it's great that you say it like that because it kind of clarifies it for a lot of people potentially watching this. Just basically start somewhere.
Right.
Just start asking questions. I mean,
it's amazing to me. Like I get questions on my Instagram or I get questions from Facebook or whatever. People go, I'm new, I want to get into wholesale. I watch your video on Propelio, or I watch your video on Steve Trang, or I did this or I did that. How do I get started in real estate? And these are guys that are like, I've had multiple guys fly out from New York, Florida, Texas to come sit in my car and drive around with me. But I'm like, why not find somebody in your own market that's doing wholesale and develop a real relationship with them that you can go follow them around frequently or go to their office when you have a question. Like, start networking your own market.
Like literally what I did was I pulled all the I buy houses, we buy houses out of Bing, Craigslist, Google, And I just made it a point to call 5 people a week.
Love it.
And then I wound up calling you one day, and we sat there on the phone for like 2 hours talking, and then spurred a relationship where I don't think, like right now, I currently have 4 deals in escrow. I have 1 already closed that I've been paid for, and I have 1 that's coming up, another listing. So that's 5 in 7 months, but I really didn't get any traction until about maybe 3
you also
months
have
in.
the Andy and Sue Chi thing that's going to be another 6 to 8 deals or whatever it's going to end up being. I mean, within 6 months of really being in this, or I think we met maybe 5 months ago, something like that. You'll have accumulated 13 deals. That's pretty damn good. I mean, other guys spend 2 years in this business not networking, but they're going out and spending money on courses, and there's nothing wrong with spending money on courses, but they're not spending as much time networking with guys who are actually doing deals, and you've done a really good job of that. Is like, who in town is doing deals? Because just like if you were an electrician, you want to build an electrical company, you're not going to go read a book.
Right.
Go find somebody who's running an electrical company, right? So that's probably the best way to get started, and you've launched because that's been your tactic. You know,
with a lot of help from you.
Well, yeah, but the other guys too, like Jesse and some other guys have been helping, and that's the fun part of this business is that.
Yeah, I think Jesse was the one that first started me on Rebo Gateway,
ListSource,
SMS campaigns as well, and I wouldn't even have known. And
the day that we met, I invited you to Steve Trang's office, and Jesse Burrell was there.
Right. And
I said, call Jesse, he'll set you up, because that's what he was doing. He was charging people to set up, and he has his own text messaging thing. They do skip tracing. So that connection is where you got started on the SMS. That's awesome. But yeah, the big thing is, in construction, if I go and I try and network with another contractor,
you're competition.
I'm competition. Mm-hmm. In wholesale, what's beautiful is that you are competing on houses that I kind of wish I had the direct line to, but even if I don't, I can still buy them from you and either flip them or help you find a buyer or whatever, and I can get paid on them by helping you. And that's what's great about this industry, is that it really is the best type of industry, that the people who are go-givers and are good at networking, those guys will not only get deals on their own by solving problems with sellers, but also helping other wholesalers solve problems they didn't quite understand. You get everything you put out, you get back in this business, and other businesses are not like that.
That's what I love about it. It's so aligned.
It's so amazing. Name one business like ours.
What I always talk about is like it's like having a really badass hobby, where when you get around and talk about your hobby with people, you're talking about making more money.
It's great.
How can we make more money?
Right.
It's phenomenal. And like in the construction business, it's all heavily guarded secrets. It's all tribal knowledge. Right. Nobody wants you to know exactly how they do what they do, because they don't want you to have any kind of advantage over them. Everybody's trying to cut each other down constantly.
We had a couple guys that I really respect in the industry in construction. We were following each other on Instagram and DMing each other. Hey man, that's a cool project. How'd you do that backsplash? Blah, 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 whatever, right? So I invited these guys to my country club because they were golfers as well. So we get out, give them lunch, pay for their golf, and I'm trying to network with these guys because I want to be able to say, hey, leverage my subcontractors, I'll leverage yours, let's build together, and let's go create a tribe of like 5 or 6 really badass younger contractors, and let's change this industry into a go-giver industry where we all help each other. And if we have one customer that doesn't pay us, tell everybody else in the group, like, don't work for this customer, like that kind of world, right? And dude, it was great for about 2 days, and then they realized that I was serious, and they just stopped answering my phone calls. I'm like, okay. And so I just kind of stopped. And then on the wholesale side, it was every single time I reached out to somebody, I said, hey, I'm doing deals, I have questions. People are like, wow, you're serious, I will help you, because there is a way for you to get paid. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's, people ask me all the time, why do you do everything you do for free? I'm like, I don't really do it for free. I do what I wish other coaches would do, which is I will walk you through, like, people on my team are essentially, you treat them like they're your team,
right?
Until you go out and build your own team. So you leverage my assets, and at some point we make money together. But if I went to a coach, they're going to teach me for 2 or 3 days all the surface level stuff. But then when you get in the middle of like a Sue Chi and Andy situation, like, how do you navigate through all that stuff?
I'm right now playing a divorce court lawyer or something like that.
There ain't no seminar that's going to teach you what you're learning right now.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a fun industry, and that's why I got out. That's why I was like, I'm done. I'm so checked out. Anna, I had her make the leap. She was in construction with me for 5 years, ran major projects. And she's like, am I going to lose my job? I know you're shutting this whole thing down. I go, no, you're going to finally do a job and finally be in an industry that you can be proud of. And now she makes way more money than she did in construction because she can be incentivized by bringing in deals. The dead body house, do you know that story?
Yeah, you told me about it. I thought you let that one go.
No, I ended up buying it. We're making 35 grand on it, and Anna is making the commission on the deal because she's the one that introduced the probate attorney or set up a probate attorney meeting with me. I talked to the probate attorney. He sent us that deal. So Anna got paid $3,500 on that, plus her base, plus another deal she got last month for $2,500. So last month she made like $9 grand. No college degree. I don't even know if she finished high school. It doesn't even matter to me. And all she's doing is building relationships with people and making great money. So I ask her all the time, like, hey, I was thinking about starting a construction company. And you're, oh no, please don't start another. This is the best thing I've ever done. I love it. Because now she can go to her kids' therapy at 10 o'clock, drop her kids off, pick her kids up. She has all her weekends for the most part. In construction, you know this, when you're running big projects, people are hitting you up all the time. Right?
Oh yeah, dude, I'm getting calls at night, getting calls on the weekend.
And it's always a problem.
Yes, it's always a problem.
And you're not making more money by solving those problems. You're making the same amount of money.
Or they want you to solve the problem for free.
There you go. But as a wholesaler, the more problems you
buy,
buy, the more problems you solve, the lower you buy the house. So you make money by actually doing the work. And so that's the beautiful part about this is if you're a critical thinker and you know how to solve problems, which as alpha males, that's what we do, right? We're wired to solve problems, which is why we actually have problems with our female counterparts a lot, is because they tell you about a problem and they're looking for a hug and a pat on the back, but all we want to do is solve that problem. Right. So you are now in an industry that you get paid for every problem you solve.
Yeah, I got some significant problems I'm solving on one property and making a freaking ton of money on solving that guy's problems.
You'll make really good money, and that's the beautiful thing is that when I first got in this business 2.5 years ago, I had a buddy that was like, oh, so you're one of those guys that steals everybody's equity. And I was like, oh man, I hadn't done my first deal yet. So I started questioning myself.
Yeah, no, I did too when I started hearing that.
And I was like, shit. So then when Anna made the transition, now this is 2 years later, when Anna made the transition from construction into helping on the wholesale, she had the same thought. She goes, well, I don't feel like this is right that we're buying these houses so deep. You're taking advantage of people. And I go, hold on. Let me go show you all 400 plus transactions we've done in the last couple of years. And I'm going to show you from the top, the first person I ever bought a house from, all the way down until it takes you to understand that there is not a single person in there that you could call right now that wouldn't say that we saved their ass. We created more value and brought a solution to them that they couldn't bring to themselves. And just because you wouldn't sell your house at a discount doesn't mean these other people aren't praying for you to come along, solve their problems, and basically give you anything that you need in order to support your team and your family. So I got through like the 10th house and the 10th story of every single seller. I went through, I have a Google sheet of every deal we've ever done. I went to the very top, made $25,000 on the first house. She already had an offer from the district, $15,000 higher than me. But the reason she was able to give me, her name was Janie Munson. The reason Janie gave me the house deeper than the district's a competitor of ours, is because I helped her find a new home for her bunnies that they didn't want to take to another house. I said, look, I'll take care of this, I'll do this. I'll also help you bring guys to your house, we'll load up the trailer for you. I basically was like a concierge service for her because nobody taught me to do that. I just do that naturally, right? In construction, you have a problem. Hey, this job site's not clean, we got to clean it up. This is the problem, we got to do that. Hey, watch out for this. You do it naturally. You're solving problems all day long.
What I loved is that when I told you that about that one house where the renters or whatever said the plumbing was backed up in their house for like 2 weeks and they hadn't got a plumber in there, you're like it was a no-brainer. Just call a plumber and pay for it.
Yeah. But one of the best deals I did this year came from that. So check this out. This is a cool story. So we get a lead. The house is on Mulberry. The seller doesn't have the physical ability to show up at the property, right? The house has been vacant for a year. So we kept calling the seller. Obviously, this game's a lot of follow-up, right? So we finally, after like 15 follow-ups, she says, well, I'll send my sister to the property. She lives really close, but I'll send my sister to the property because she's going over there weekly or bi-weekly to check on the property and just make sure it's fine. So she shows up to the property and she's got 2 grocery bags in her hands full of dishes. And I'm like, So instead of me talking about the house and talking about whatever, I immediately put my arm around her. I said, we had already joked around, and she's holding these grocery bags. I had already broken through that barrier where I could actually put my arm on her. And I said, tell me, what are you doing with these grocery bags of dishes? And she says, well, I'm actually washing my dishes here because my house doesn't have water. And I'm like, wait, you're telling me you bring your dishes over here, wash your dishes at this vacant house, and then take them back to your property? I mean, it's amazing the situations we run into in this business. And so I said, Donna, tell me what's going on. She goes, well, a couple things. We didn't pay our water bill because we ran out of money, and the water stopped going through our pipes, and our pipes corroded, and now, even though we probably could turn the water on, the pipes are just going to spray everywhere. I go, let me send Shane over there. Regardless of whether I buy this house from your sister or not, I want to help you out. So Shane charges me $1,800. I paid $1,800 to fix this lady's plumbing because it was the right thing to do. So she goes over, Shane goes over, cleans all this stuff up. It takes a week because he's like under this mobile home. She lives in a mobile home. He's underneath there, like black widows. He had to get like a Tyvek suit to protect himself. It was just a hairy situation.
Right.
So meanwhile, the seller of the property stopped replying to us. So Shane sends me an invoice, and I called Donna. I said, hey, Donna, I'm about to pay Shane's invoice. And I hate to ask you this, but I'm happy to pay this. I'm going to pay it. I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do. But you know what? It'd be really great if you could help me contact your sister. Would you be willing to do that? She goes, yes, I'll try and do that. So her sister calls us back, says, hey, my sister told me all the nice things you guys did, and I feel really bad, but we're not ready to sell right now. I go, okay. Totally understand. Pay the bill with Shane. A week later, Donna calls me and she goes, hey, I think the plumbing's fine, but now the water bill is $2,400 of all the payments we missed and all that stuff. You said you'd help me. Would you be willing to help me? And I said, well, I don't know you. I've met you one time, and I've already given you $1,800 from my kids and my family. I took it out of my family and gave it to your family. Because that's where that money comes from. It's money that doesn't grow on trees. I had to take it from somewhere. I took it from my family and gave it to your family. If you are able to help me get your sister to sell the house to me on Mulberry, I will pay your water bill. So 2 days later, her sister's signing with me. I paid the water bill. We made $32,000 on that transaction. So I got all my money back plus some.
Right.
So I was willing to give her something regardless of what happened, but then I leveraged the other way to get her sister to sell. Now here's what happened. This is the best deal combined because it turned into a 3-home deal. So she comes to me and she says, hey, it's fine. So she comes to us a month later and she says, when you came over here with Shane and all that kind of stuff, you made us think that you're just an angel sent from heaven, and we want to sell our house to you. Not only do we want to sell our house to you, we want to sell the empty lot next to it, everything combined. Will you help us find another house? So here's what we're doing. We're buying her house, which literally I'm going to probably just get a gallon of gas, pour it on the corner of the house, and burn that shit alive. Like, it is so bad. It is the worst house I've ever been in. But we're relocating them to another mobile home that we bought that I'm keeping the ownership of, and I'm letting them live there for free until they pass away. They're older. So they're like, we don't care. We just want to be out of this thing. It's falling apart. Just put us somewhere where we don't have to make a payment. So we're taking the money we made on the first home, buying another home, cashing it out, so I own an asset. They're going to live in there rent-free, and at some point it's just going to be a savings account that when they move out or they pass away or whatever, I get that asset back. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm taking the 2 lots and I'm putting 2 mobiles on it, and we'll make probably about $180,000 by doing the project net 180 grand. So all in all, I'll make $225,000, and at the end of the day, I'll still own that lot when they pass away. They got probably maybe 10 more years. So it just spurs on more opportunities to solve people's problems, and it's just, I call it, I know it's kind of maybe a dirty word, but I call it lubrication. Everything you do is lubrication to get the next deal. The next deal gets greased up, and you're just greasing your wheels and greasing the cogs by paying for the plumbing, or can I do your moving expenses? Or yesterday, check this out. I know I told you I was a talker. Just like, I
no, we're good.
Stories. So this late, I get set an appointment Friday night. I'm like in Maryville at 6 o'clock, right? I'd rather be at my house at 6 o'clock, and Friday night's date night. But I'm out working, right? That's more important than anything else. So I go to this appointment. There's a chain link fence in front of the house, so I can't get to the front door. So I go into my calendar. That's where my team puts all my notes. Press on the phone number. Hey, name's Barbara. Hey, Barbara, this is Pace. I'm supposed to be here. Austin set the appointment. Just wanted you to know I'm outside. She goes, well, I'm not selling my house anymore. I have 12 other offers, and I'm probably going to take one of those other offers. I don't even need to meet with you. I go, okay, well, no problem. I totally get that. Do you mind if I just go through the property and see if I can at least give you a better offer? And she's like, no, I've already told them verbally that I'm going to go with them. I go, okay, but you haven't signed anything. She goes, yes, but I'm a woman of my word. I go, okay, great. Hey, I'm going to respect your wishes. I'm going to jump in my car, and just on my drive home, would you just mind giving me 10, 15 minutes? That way I won't be so lonely on my drive home. And I get her laughing and whatever, right? We break through that little barrier. Next thing you know, she goes, well, the reason I haven't signed, I go, why haven't you signed with them? If it's a good offer, why haven't you signed? What's that next step? She goes, well, because I told them that I'm not going to sign until I find a house in Sholo that I can afford. I go, great. I know the biggest broker in town up there in Sholo, which I don't. I know the biggest broker in town up there. We can find you something. What's the offer they gave you? So she tells me the offer, and I go, well, what if I beat that by $1,000? And I put in my contract that I will find you a house before we close escrow. And this house will fit your parameters or very close to it. How would that make you feel? This was a 30-minute conversation, not
10.
I summed it up in 3 seconds. She goes, did you already get home? I go, no, I actually have not left your street yet. She goes, oh my gosh. I go, I understand the power of solving problems, so I'm ready to go. She goes, well, why don't you come back and I'll sign with you right now. So we went back and we signed the contract. That's one of our 4 deals that we got this week. So solving problems is so fun, as you know. It's like digging in and solving everybody else's problems is so fun. And if you're good at that, you'll crush wholesale. And the other thing is, like, all these other mechanisms we talk about, those are just more lubrication. So think about...
Well, we go in there and you have more options to give
way
them.
more options.
Yeah.
Think about seller finance, for example.
Right.
So we had a guy, this is really funny. Had a guy 2 weeks ago. I went to the appointment. It's a Sunday afternoon. I go to the appointment and I go, okay, well, great. You've got 2 other offers from 2 other wholesalers. Tell me about that. Well, we wanted to get a third opinion before we decided to move forward. One of the guys is a really nice guy. And I go, all right, well, tell me what he's doing for you. So they tell me, I go, wow, that's actually a really good number. I'd probably be a couple grand lower than that, to be honest. I'm probably not a great buyer for you. But what are you going to do with the 100 grand that you're getting? He goes, well, we're going to pay off this and pay off that so that we can go and get another house because this house is falling apart. And it's probably going to be a year or 2 before we can get back into another mortgage. I go, if you've got 100 grand, why don't you just give me 30 grand of it and I'll finance you into another house? He goes, wait, what? And I go, yeah, I do a lot of seller finance. So you give me 30 grand. I don't care about your credit. I don't care about anything. We'll go find you a house and I'll seller finance it to you. We'll get you a mortgage right away and then we'll close escrow. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm going with you. So this is what's funny about this story. So I now have an option to get this deal lower than the other guy. Who was the other guy? So I always ask because I want to know everybody in town. So I go, well, if you don't mind, like now that we're moving forward, if you don't mind, who are you working with? And they say, oh, well, do you know a guy named Eric Sage? And I'm like, yes, I love Eric Sage. He's like one of my best friends. And actually him and I are business partners on our assisted living side. And in fact, the seller finance is where I learned that from him. I'm surprised he hasn't brought this up to you. And they're like, well, we didn't tell him we were going to make this kind of money and blah, 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 blah. So by asking a couple of deeper questions, I was actually able to outbeat Sage. So this is what I did. I called Sage when I was in the appointment. I said, hey, Sage, I'm here at this appointment on Pueblo. He goes, oh, yeah, oh, man, you're there? You got the lead? I go, actually, I'm sitting here with them and I'm telling them that you're the person to go with. So why don't we work on this deal together? We'll go find it. We're friends. If it was another wholesaler, I'm business partners with Sage, so I did that. But if it was just a friend of mine, I would have outbeat them and then told them, hey, just so you know, next time you do an appointment, this is how I got it. Next time, do a better job on such and such. But I learned that from Sage and then basically outbeat Sage with his own tactics. I'm surprised he didn't use it. But it's just way better leverage to have all these options for people.
What I thought was funny was on the Dulce deal, I
I didn't know where to go with her anymore, so I call you up,
Right.
and you're like, yeah, I just bought that house, like fuck.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you know how I got that deal? Is the house on Kings that your friend Jesse's currently living in? I let them live in that house for 2 months because they needed a place to live. So I had a vacant house, and I go, what are your problems? Why are you not moving forward? Usually when I give an offer to somebody, they're jumping all over it, and the first answer is yes. I see your physical, your body's telling me no. Tell me why your body's telling me no. Like, they clench up when I give them an offer, and I go, usually people get an offer and they move forward because they want to take my offer. What's going on? And she was like, well, we need this, this, and this. And so I let them live in that house for another 30 days, and then I let them move into Kings for another 30 days, and we got the deal done. Nothing was seller finance, but because I had a vacant house that has to sit there while I'm getting it licensed, why not use it as leverage to get the deal done?
Well, the other thing that you were saying too was they didn't have any money for their kids to eat at the same time, and you just
100%.
pulled cash out of your
Right.
pocket and gave them money.
Right. I think I remember I had some cash, and I gave them, I always carry 3, like I'll rip out 3 checks out of my checkbook and I'll just carry them in my car. I had another wholesaler the other day that was like, I'm running out of money. I'm learning this business, but I'm running out of money. I go, how much do you need? And he's like, $1,200. I go, here you go. Take it against the next deal that we do together. And then, do you think he's going to send that deal to anybody else but me? No. So I'm basically paying. It's the same thing I'm doing with anybody. It's like, how do I lubricate? How do I help? How do I facilitate your growth and make sure whatever? So it's a fun business. Are there times where I may waste money? Yeah, I think so. I'd say 5% of the money I make goes to like weird shit that just helps me get deals done. But it's also the fun of the game. It's like I wake up, it's like, what kind of fun stuff can we do today? Right?
So how does your wife fit into all of this?
Laura, the advantage with Laura is Laura was going through real estate school when I first met her. And I was in a golf business. I was starting my construction company. I also owned a golf company that I was passionate about. And when we first met, she was going through real estate school and she really wanted to be a traditional real estate agent. But being a traditional real estate agent is very, very challenging. And she ended up going and getting a job, but then she came back to it a couple years later and she went and worked for a guy named Danny Perkinson, good friend of mine. He was on Steve Train's podcast as well. She went and worked for him as a transaction coordinator. So she was handling 65 real estate agents' transactions for this company. So she was the go-between on the buy and the sell side. So she'd see all the problems, the terminology, the paperwork, and whatever else. So when I started in wholesale, my first month in business, I got 4 deals. And I was the one answering the phone, setting my own appointments, and going and closing the deals. And then I was also the one doing the dispo, and I was running the whole thing. It was just too much. So at some point in the first 4 months, I said, I need somebody at least answering the phones for me. And my conversion rate went from 11% for every deal that came in. I would close 11% of my leads to 16% because she was setting my appointment, not me. Right? It makes you look more professional whenever I go, oh wow, there's something here.
Well, so, she's awesome on the phone too.
Oh, she's so good. So I had her quit her job with Danny. She came on board to handle all my transactions, and now she gets to stay home. And I had Danny and all these other guys to thank because they trained her and hired her through like putting her through the fire. And now I get to leverage all of that. She's like, we had a deal with Steve and Max where they brought a deal and they go, hey, I don't know if you're interested in this deal, but the foreclosure is in 24 hours, so maybe it doesn't work. So my wife was able to call, stop the foreclosure, and now around town, I have like 15 wholesalers that when they have somebody going into foreclosure, they call my wife and say, you know how to do this, nobody else in town knows how to do it, will you stop the foreclosure on this house so that we can whatever. So she is a rock star that brings leverage and abilities and knowledge that other people don't. I mean, even yesterday, you called me and you had a question. What did I do?
Handed it to her.
I go, hey, Laura, answer this question. And she was able to figure that. I think she answered the question.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. But you know what? We got a pretty big badass right standing next to me. Let me have her answer the question. So she plays a really big part. And then also it helps me in my personal life that when you come home and you've got a wife or a significant other, you want to update them on your day. I don't have to do that. My wife knows where I am, what I'm doing. She sees my calendar. She's changing things around. She knows everything and everywhere I am. So when I come home, it's not like, how was your day? It was, hey, how was that appointment with Jenny? Hey, how'd that deal go? Blah, 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 blah. And it's a much higher level conversation that we're having, right? Like her and I stayed up last night talking about whole life insurance and all sorts of stuff. And it's just so fun hanging out with her. And she's my first business partner, right? So my suggestion to everybody is, if you have a wife that has a job, at some point build this business up big enough that they can come and absorb it. You guys become Beyonce and Jay-Z of wholesale, become a power couple, and every conversation you're having about whole life and seller finance and all that stuff, and you're building this, essentially what you don't want to do is outgrow intelligence-wise investment strategies and all that stuff that you're trying to get the person who's stuck at their 9-to-5 job excited about. It's not going to work. You got to disconnect them, get them involved, and now all of a sudden you guys are on the same page, and now you're investing in whole life, and you're doing this, and you're doing seller finance and redeploying money.
Like after we talked about this the other day, and my wife, so my wife didn't have the advantage of being trained by somebody, right, and then come into this. So I'm telling her, so I'm working on learning Podio. After you sent Aaron over, I totally redirected me on where I need to go. I'm Podio,
yeah,
Mojo. I need to get my VA, and I start vetting VA or virtual assistants. I was like, babe, I'm going to be doing all this right now from scratch. I don't know what I'm doing yet. I need to learn it. Can you just grab the QuickBooks and run with it?
Right.
Just figure it all out and just go.
Love it.
And she's all, absolutely.
So awesome.
And like what we were saying before, you got to be really careful too, because when you come in this and you are kind of a workaholic, you can't just go in there and say, I'm doing this all for us. You know what I mean? Like what we were talking about, it's not all about you. It's all about the family effort.
And that's a hard thing for men to convey to their significant other. That's something that I struggle with. And so I think I told you and I told Steve the other day about a book that I just read recently called How to Work on Your Marriage Without Talking About It. And part of the principle in there is like, your wife is my wife doesn't complain. She does say stuff like, if I'm not showing her how important she is to the business, and I think you probably do a better job of this than I do, this is something I'm still learning, but if I'm not telling her, hey, if you didn't do these things, the business would not have been able to accomplish our goals this month. You are a super, super important part of it. Now when she sees me out at appointments on Friday night at 8 o'clock, she understands that's part of the team mentality. I'm not doing it for myself, and I don't come home and go, look, I got this deal.
Right.
I go, hey guys, we got another deal. Laura, can you take the football and run with it for a little while until blah, 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 so I can go get another football, right? So in that book, it talks about the reason your wife is complaining about you working too much is because she feels insecure about the relationship. But if she feels secure about the relationship, she won't complain about you working. She'll encourage you to work more. And that's what I need. I need somebody that tells me, like, you have a superpower, you have a superpower. A very unique and very rare trait in a guy like you or a guy like me is I might not be that smart, right? You and I can go gain knowledge, but we have the fire inside of us that you can't explain to anybody. People are like, well, why do you work so hard? Dude, I can't explain. I have a fire in me that the more I learn, the more I want to learn, and the more blah, 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 blah. So you and I have a fire. We need a partner in our life that's blowing at the bottom base of that fire to kindle it and get it big and grow it and grow and grow it. That's what you need. So I'm trying as much as I can to get my wife to understand that's what I need. And every day she sends me a text, hey, I'm super proud of you. This is awesome. Yada, yada, yada. I saw your such and such. You're amazing. And I'm like, that's what I need. So I wish I learned that principle 10 years ago. I wish I learned that when I learned seller finance. I wish seller finance at the same time. That would have been awesome.
Dude, I love it, man. Like what you said. You said that I landed in the right place. I'm in the right place. I'm around the right people, and
it sounds cliche. So like when you look on people's Instagrams and all that kind of stuff, and people like there's all these motivational Instagrams that I follow, and they say these really cliche things like, find the job you love and you'll never have to work another day in your life. And like when I didn't have the job I loved, I was like, yeah, whatever. That's bullshit. That doesn't happen. Work is work. But now, like, people drive around with me on a daily basis and they're like, wow, man, you work so hard. And I go, I don't feel like I'm going to work. It is so crazy. I wake up and I'm excited. It's almost like the feeling I have when I'm about to go play golf. I like put my clothes on. I'm excited. I make sure my clubs are clean. And I make sure my radio's charged. I'm pumped up. It's like a kid's first day back at school after summer vacation, that feeling of elation. I feel elated anytime I can talk about this business, as I'm sure you are.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I
exciting.
suck the life out of people sometimes because they're not following me. Or if they are following me, then we're bouncing off each other. And I think today, Zach just like freaking got a massive education. I know he started when we knew that you were coming on here. I sent him all the links to the podcasts that you've been on.
Oh, you did? Oh, wow. You know I'm a talker then.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the questions that Zach had.
Well, actually, like, to me, it's always really important whatever you're doing. So what I wanted to know from you was, like, you're obviously really passionate about real estate, but what are you most proud about in real estate?
Honestly, I was thinking about this. So a guy named Logan was driving around with me the other day, and he said, "What's the number one thing that motivates you?" And I said, "I don't know if this is the right answer, but this is the current answer." And the answer is, I have a huge fear that drives me. It's not so much that I'm proud of what I'm doing.
I do too.
I'm afraid of my kids not being proud of me.
Yeah.
So speaking of pride, I want my kids to be like, they go to school and go, "Look what my dad did. Hey, see that building down the road? My daddy built that. You see the storage facility down that? My dad knew how to structure that." And obviously they would say it that way. My dad arbitraged this guy's loan, whatever. But that
They wrapped it.
right. I think the only thing I'm proud of is that I finally found my position in life, and I wish I found it 10 years ago. I have, I think what you have, I don't know you well enough to say you have it or not, but I'm sure if you're hanging out with this guy, you do. But you have an insatiable desire that, Steve Trank sends me a message the other day and goes, "How much money will you net this year?" And we're on that level that you can ask me that question. I'll answer that question. I have no problem. Because again, it's like talking about tools. What kind of tools do you have? I'll have a Makita versus a DeWalt, and I like the DeWalt more than I like the Makita because of blah, 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 blah. I look at money as just another tool, so I'm happy to talk about it. But he asked me that question, and he goes, "Remember in January when we were running, you said that you wanted to make X amount of dollars this month. You've already surpassed that at 8 months through the year." And he goes, "We should have stopped and had a party, but I know that's not the kind of person you are. You blew past it without any sort of celebration." And I said, I'm never satisfied. I'm only temporarily amused." And
That's
I think
awesome.
you're the same thing, is that you are temporarily amused for like half a day. You learn something, you research, watch a couple YouTube videos, and then the next day you're like, "What's next? What's next? What's next?" And that's the Elon Musk, the Steve Jobs. I'll never be at that level, but if I can be a little micro guy of them and have the same path in life, that I just learn the next thing, learn the next thing, learn the next thing. So I'm proud of the fact that I found my position at 34 when I got into this business, not 44.
Sure.
And I'm proud that I can help a lady as a gap lender at 63, not 73. I'm proud that I figured this out at the stage I did. And there's other wholesalers in town that are like 23, 24 that are getting deals done, but they have no life experience. They don't understand what it's like to be married or have kids. And so when you don't have those life experiences, it's hard to solve people's problems that are much older than you, going through some really shitty situations. So I feel like I learned this at the appropriate time, that I was able to launch fast, because the life experience that I've had allows me to solve much more problems than somebody that's 24 can solve problems. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm walking into some of these escrows, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm like, I'm working with Laura, and then all of a sudden, like, I start taking the reins on it.
100%, because you have your own kids, you have your own wife, you have bills, you have job, you have bosses and employees and people you manage and all that stuff for the last 10, 15 years. You've accumulated a tremendous skill to solve problems and navigate through bullshit. So now that you are applying it to a way better arena, you can see that it's scary how amazing this business is, that I want to teach people how to get into it, because I'm so like passionate about it, but I also want to keep it a secret, right? Because I don't want it to go away. I don't want to get too diluted. But the more I'm in this business, I realize how many deals are out there. Like, I got a text message from somebody yesterday, and I had this is literally the thought I had. He goes, "Hey, I drove by this house, it's burned down, called the seller, he told me the story, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how to close this guy, can you come with me?" Which is something I do a lot of. So I go, "Yeah, I'd be happy to." And the thought I had was, how in the hell is there 500 wholesalers in town and nobody has talked to this guy with a burned down house? with all the people driving around town and driving for dollars and doing the apps and doing all the stuff, skip tracing, texting, and all the stuff, this guy has never spoken to somebody. It just tells you how many deals and how much of this market is untapped.
42nd lane. He had one person leave him a voicemail. He hasn't talked to anybody. When he was telling me he was talking to somebody else, it was BS.
Isn't that amazing?
It is. It is amazing. And that house is an obvious freaking one.
It's an obvious, you drive by and you're like, oh wow, that's a driving for dollars dream right there. Like you'd think somebody else would have contacted him. So you think like people go into the business that don't understand it, they see the opportunity, but they say, oh, it's too saturated, it's too competitive, and I'm going to go
It's that scarcity mindset.
Right. Because there's guys in town that are spending $40,000-$50,000 a month on marketing and getting 10 deals, which is fine because the cost of acquisition is $4,000 or $5,000 a deal. It's not great, but it's not terrible. There's other guys I know that are spending 10 grand to get one deal, right? Direct mail and stuff like that. My cost per deal right now, our total overhead cost is like $20,000, and we're getting between 20 and 25 deals a month. So I'm under $1,000 in acquisition. You probably are close to that because you're a single dude. You don't have all this team and all this big stuff
Pretty
yet.
low. I think all in all in marketing that I've spent so far is probably about $7,000.
Yeah, so you'll be kind of in that same realm. But when you start hiring people and then train them and they don't work out, you got to hire another person, train them. They don't work out, and the fifth time you've trained that person, they finally stick. Okay, now let me go over to this other employee, do the same thing. You basically have to hire 10 people to find 2 good ones. And as you're going through all that, you're spending money and wasting overhead and all that kind of stuff, but you are going to scale. But the best way to scale without spending any more money on marketing is to get more and more creative, which, it's fun to watch you say, well, what if we do this and what if we do that? It's fun to chat about all this stuff. Like, I stopped talking about anything besides wholesaling, assisted living, seller finance, investment strategies, golf, and Game of Thrones. Those are the only 6 things I talk about. So if I'm at dinner with somebody, if we're not talking about those 6 things, we got a problem. And we're not going to have another dinner date because it's the same thing. Like, you go hang out with people and everything goes over their head. You're like, I want to be around people that like having these conversations. Mm-hmm. And 2 weeks ago, I was in a conversation with somebody where they were giving me as much information as I just gave you guys right there. And I'm like, I know nothing.
Yeah.
I know nothing.
It's like what we were talking about earlier on. Is like you just got to know when you're the person that's supposed to shut the fuck up.
Basically, yeah.